Now we're going to do a quick UV editing exercise and work more with adding image textures. And I'll be explaining three very important textures to you. Color maps, which we've used before, and they're just color information. Specular maps, which determine which parts of a texture are shiny. And normal maps, which give the illusion that a flat surface is bumpy. You'll be UV mapping texture maps like this very often, so this tutorial is going to explain all of them. So let's open up a blend file called wooden crate start.blend. There's nothing really special about this scene, it's just the default cube, but I added some better lighting. Now we're going to load in some wooden crate textures and make this cube look good. So first, like in the last exercise, let's UV unwrap this and add a color map to it to start. So with the cube selected, let's quickly UV unwrap this by going into edit mode and selecting all of the vertices, and now all we have to do is simply load in an image in the image window, and it'll automatically UV unwrap this and place the image we load in on each of the faces. So in edit mode with all the vertices selected, drag over the image window, go to the image menu and select open image, and navigate to the project/textures folder. And let's load in our color map, crate_col.png. You'll see that image we just loaded in is now automatically applied to each of the faces. Now we really don't have to unwrap this any further. That's kind of all we wanted. Because our image texture here is going to be repeated on each side of the box, we don't have to unwrap this cube like we did in the last exercise. The automatic unwrap that happened when we loaded in the image will definitely be good enough, but we could rotate some of the UVs around so that the text on the box is oriented better. So let's do that. Let's go into face select mode in the header of the 3D view. And let's select one face at a time and rotate it, and rotate the UVs so that this text is facing the way we want it to. So with the face on the left side there selected, go into the image window and press the A key to select all of those UVs, and simply rotate that until the text is oriented the way you want it to be. And hold Control for perfect rotation snapping. There, that's how I wanted it. And let's do that with this face too. So select that face, select all of those UVs, and rotate it 90 degrees. And let's rotate the scene and see how the other ones look. This one could use a rotation. Alright, that looks fine to me. Top face doesn't matter. There, now all the text is facing the way we want it to. So now that the cube is UV unwrapped and we've applied this color map to it, let's go ahead and create a material and a texture for it. And then after that, we'll add in specular maps and normal maps to really bring out the detail. So let's get out of edit mode and let's start by creating a new material. In the material buttons here, click on the new button to create a new material. And turn intensity up to 1 and specular intensity down to 0. That's all we really have to do here. Press Alt and Z for textured view, and you'll see our color map isn't showing up on it yet. We still need to add an image texture for that. So go into the texture buttons now and click on New to add a new texture. And let's rename this color map. Change the texture type to image, and from the image panel here, go into the image menu on the left and select crate_col.png. Alright, it's showing up on the cube, but we still need to change the way it's mapped to the cube. So go down to the mapping panel and change coordinates from generated to UV. So it uses the UV coordinates we created. So now that we've got the color map loaded in as a texture, let's work on adding a specular map. So scroll back up to the top, click on an empty slot underneath the color map, click on the new button, rename this to specular map, change the texture type to image, and under the image panel, click on open, and let's open up our specular map. Navigate to the project/textures folder and open up crate_spec. Alright, here's our specular map. Let me show you what it looks like. In the image window, I'm going to pull this up so I can describe it to you. Here's our specular map. It's the same exact size as our color map so that everything aligns properly. And this is just a black and white image where the lighter areas are shiny and the darker areas are not. That's all it is. So here in the corners we have these bright circles. They're all the nails, all the metal nails, which are definitely going to be shiny. For the wood, I just have a very faint gleam in some of the areas. It's wood, so it's not really going to be shiny, but this is going to give it sort of a moist look. And a basic specular map is just a grayscale image where the light parts are shiny and the dark parts are not. So let's figure out how to actually make this be used to affect the specularity. Now that we've got the image loaded in, first we need to change the mapping coordinates from generated to UV so that it's UV mapped just like our color map. Now scroll down to the influence panel. This is where the magic happens. First we need to change RGB to intensity. That is going to change our image here into grayscale values that are used for intensity so that we can use that to affect the specular intensity. So just quickly enable that and everything turns pink, but that's fine. Under the diffuse options, disable color because we don't want this to be used as a color map. We've already got one of them. We just want it to be used to affect the specular intensity, so let's enable that. There, and you can see that it's already worked. These nails up here got shinier, and you can see a little bit of a gleam in the middle of the wood here. You can turn that on and off to see what I mean. Let's rotate the cube. So it already added a new element of detail to our crate, making this look a lot better. Alright, we're starting to bring some life to it, but it's still very flat, so we're going to need that normal map. The normal map is just going to bump out these planks of wood and the nails and some of the grain in the wood. So with the specular map finished, click on a slot beneath that and click on New to add a new texture. Rename this texture Normal Map. Go into the type and change that to Image. We're going to do pretty much the same thing we did the specular map. We're just going to load an image and change a few settings. Now in the image panel here, click on Open. And go to the project/textures folder and open up crate_nor.png. This is our normal map. And it's all blue. Like I did with the specular map, I'm going to show you the normal map and describe to you exactly what is happening with it. So I'm going to open up that in the image window so we can take a look at it. Now there's lots of blues and pinks going on here. I can't really explain to you exactly what they all do, but basically all of the information contained in this image tells light how to bump off the surface to give the illusion that it's 3D. So there's a lot of light information in here, and that affects the way the surfaces look on the cube. And in section 9 of tips and tricks, I go over how to actually create normal maps from specular maps and from sculpting, and how to bake them from a high resolution mesh to a low resolution mesh. So right now this is just about applying it to the cube. So with that image loaded into the image panel, again we need to change the mapping coordinates from generated to UV. So you'll see now everything is aligned with the textures beneath it. And by the way, this image, just like the specular map, is the same exact size as the color map. It can be bigger, but you should keep it the same shape so that everything aligns in the end. And in order for Blender to recognize this as a true normal map, we have to go to the Image Sampling panel and enable this option here called Normal Map. So quickly enable that, and we can minimize that. And now scroll down, and since we don't want this to be a color map, we can disable color under diffuse options And the last thing we need to do is enable normal under geometry. There we go. And you can see how everything just bumped out when we enabled that. You rotate it around so you can see all the detail. You can see all the grit on the plywood at extreme angles. And you can see the planks of wood actually look like they're 3D now. And this doesn't just look like a flat cube anymore. Bit some depth with that normal map, and some extra detail with that specular map. So that's the basics of adding in the three of the main texture maps: a color map, a specular map, and a normal map. And we'll be going over how to create specular maps and normal maps in the tips and tricks section.